Assalamu alaikum. My name is Salim Siddiqui, and you're watching the HotConflict.com video series talking about Eid, the great celebration. Yes, I'm going to continue to remind you this because we must stay focused on what we are talking about, and that is the celebration where Muslims all over the world have gathered together to pray and bow their head to the Lord Most High all over the earth, as all of the earth has been made holy, and that all of the people who call themselves Muslims, saying we have submitted to the truth of the light, or Islam, the way of those who submit to the truth of the light, bow their heads down to the Lord Most High, as all of the sons of Adam. We say that none of us are slaves to anyone, regardless of language or color or any other differences between any of the sons of Adam, that we all bow down to the Lord and only to the Lord, the one who has created all of the world and everything that is in it, and all of the galaxy and all of the universe. And our story is going to continue to get dramatic and weird, but let's stay focused for a second that while Muslims are doing that right now here, like I in Houston, at the same time Muslims are gathered at the holy house in Mecca, where Abraham and his son Ishmael built with their own hand the noble Kaaba to signify on this earth that the worship of the Lord Most High. And it is well known in all of the tales of Abraham being the great father of monotheism. And so as we've continued to talk about this tale of Abraham, the great father, I've even gotten to the point of talking about my own father, and for that there is a reason. But we're getting into interesting parts in the story, and I know you were excited if you just left off, so I want to continue and go right back into the tale. And so we must remind ourselves of the fundamentals just quickly so that we know what we're talking about and don't get lost. Because we've continued to maintain the fundamentals so that when everybody hears the story of the truth once and for all, they never lose sight of the fundamentals. Because we said, in the search for the light there is always darkness, and that the Lord Most High created all of the universe and everything in it, Allah meaning the God, created angels of light who have no free will, jinns or the other races, aliens, reptoids, grays, greens, and we've described some of their natures. Go back and listen to it. They are made of smokeless fire from another dimension, or the unseen, the ghaib as we say in Arabic. And we've been talking about Eastern terminology and Western knowledge and putting them all together, and sitting here as someone who is able to speak this story to you in your own way, in your own language, the story of the truth in a way it's never been told before, for the first time to an English-speaking audience. And I'm making bold claims and saying crazy things. And as I said, we want to stay away from labels and names, because we know that those who call themselves Muslims also have flaws. And I'm sure by the end of this story, there are many who call themselves Muslims, submitters to the light, who will suggest that I am full of darkness and having no light. But the signs of the story are always there for anyone to see. And as I've always maintained, there is nothing great about me except for the fact that I am able to tell you the story. And the reason why is very simple. As I said, we're going to jump right back into the story. There I was sitting at home, and I am asking the Lord to help guide me to be able to speak the word. And I am truly humbly seeking God's guidance and asking him without even knowing how to ask for the light. And it is at that point late at that night that I remember the statements that I read in the book. And so here we are. What were these strange statements that I read in this book? Well, if you read these strange statements, like I said, it was statements about the Prophet's life that I had read many, many times before, but that I possibly didn't understand until now. And so what was it that me and my family were talking about? We said we were talking about the signs and things that are to come, because we're trying to understand the world that we are in and recognize what is really happening in the world, in the skies, in the galaxy or universe. Strange things are going on, and because I'm telling you the story of the truth, of course, I've got to give you some parts that are very, very weird. So let's just go straight into the statements that anyone can find. As I said, if a person tells the story of the truth, all parts of it must fit. There can't be any gaps in it. It must explain everything. And how is it that I know that? Well, here were the statements. I was sitting there reading with my family, and then later on that night, I remembered the statements. And as I was sitting there thinking of what the question was. Well, what was the question? I said I was sitting there thinking, I need to say something because today is Eid, the great festival of Muslims. How do I talk about that? And not knowing what I know now, I was sitting there thinking, how do I talk about the great Eid as we've opened every section of this tale referencing the holy house on the earth where bearers of the light circle the house in worship to the Lord. And we even referenced the angels circling the house of the Lord Most High in the highest of the heavens. And in that there was a sign for people who are listening. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the references of Adam and go back to the references of the Prophet Muhammad on his ascension journey. Yes, we've talked about some weird, wild stuff. We've talked about some weird, wild stuff. And so it is at this point that you want to know the secret of how I got this light. Well, we said that when someone tells you the story of truth, you should recognize it. So what was it that I read in the books of the statements of the prophet? Now, strangely enough, it wasn't even something that the prophet said. It was some statements that the companions had written down about something strange that happened. Now here, when I tell you what happened, any person of knowledge from any religious group or any secret society or any association or mystic should recognize this is the truth. One day, the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, woke up in the morning. And as we said, the Muslims have been granted 5 prayers. Well, he came to the mosque to worship the Lord, and he led the people in the morning prayer. But something strange happened. After he led the morning prayer, he got up on the pulpit and began to speak. Now, as all prophets of the light have encouraged their community to gather once in a week for a congregational prayer to remind themselves of staying together, the Muslims now have Friday as the holy day. As we know, the sons of Israel were given the Sabbath, and the Christians take Sunday as their day, as Jesus perhaps prescribed them. But the Muslims, and from the Prophet Muhammad until the end of days now with the final revelation, have been granted Friday. And so, as many people know in the West, Muslims go on Friday and listen to a sermon. But it is on Friday that the sermon is given. The congregational prayer is on Friday, not in the morning of another day. So something strange was going on. What happened that day? The prophet led the people in prayer. And then he got up on the pulpit and he began to talk to the people. And he told them, and he told them, and he told them. When the sun hit the center of the skies and it was time for the midday prayer, he descended from the pulpit and led the people in prayer. After the prayer, something strange happened. He got back on the pulpit and began to preach and talk to them about the word and told them, and some of them listened. And they kept listening, and it was a strange event. When the sun had began to go halfway through the sky towards the end of the day, he descended from the pulpit for the 3rd prayer of the day, led the congregation in prayer. But after the prayer, he rose back to the pulpit and began to tell them again, and talk to them, and talk to them, and talk to them. When the sun finally set and the day was over, he descended and led them in prayer, and that is the end of the story. Now, some of the narrations say that many people were there. Some say that some people came and left. Some say that many people listened. Some understood. Some did not understand. Some memorized. Many forgot. What is it that the prophet talked about at that time? Well, as being someone who's telling you the story of truth, it is now the reason that I am going to tell you how it is that you are able to get to this point on the planet Earth.